Groups like ISIL can't destroy us. They can't defeat us. They don't produce anything. They're not an existential threat to us. It is very important for us to not respond with fear.
The advanced person who let him do the tango, that person ought to be looking for work on somebody's, in somebody's campaign very, very far away. That was a tremendous mistake. It's fine to go to Argentina. You want to do the work, but you've got to be careful of these little photo ops for optics, baseball games, and tangos.
All right, let's bring in our special expanded panel to talk about that. Syndicated columnist George Will, editor-in-chief of LifeZette, Laura Ingraham, A.B. Stoddard, associate editor of The Hill, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Welcome to all of you. All right, George, I'll start with you. I mean, the president had plans. He had trips. For you, is there a difference between his obligations with Cuba and the trip to Argentina as far as packing up and coming home?
Well, there is a difference because he shouldn't have been in Cuba in the first place. But his languid response to terrorism, whether it's carnage in European capitals or workplace violence, as he calls it at Fort Hood, is part of his general pose of superior understanding. Furthermore, he goes to immediately the default position, which is if we don't continue with whatever we're doing, then terrorists will be reassured. So if we don't tango, the terrorists have won. So it's a familiar trope. Finally, then he brings out the idea that more people die in swimming pool accidents or whatever than terrorism. Therefore, classic non sequitur, terrorism is not all that important. Finally, and contradictorily, he says, if I do these different things, that my schedule to be rearranged and all the rest, every time there's a terrorist attack, it'll happen frequently because terrorism is so frequent. Which is it?
And I have to say on the tango issue, Laura, before I come to you, one of our White House producers said the president tried to resist that numerous times, but this dancer kept coming back to him very aggressively, and it became clear that he was super uncomfortable, and he got dragged into that. She wanted us to know that was sort of the setup for that situation. But, you know, aides say that if the attack had been in the U.S. or more directly involved the U.S., the president likely would have come back. Where do you draw the line? What's the distinction for you?
Well, we might not be able to beat ISIL under Obama's understanding, but we can definitely outdance ISIL. I mean, this is like, it reminds me of the scene of Dirty Dancing. Remember the dance contest at the end? I mean, it was just, the idea that he couldn't have turned down the dance. I mean, he's the leader of the free world. He couldn't say, you know, that would have been just a moment, and it would have maybe been a little bit reassuring to people. I don't want to make too much of this, but one moment you're doing the limp wrist, raising the hand with Rafael Castro. The next moment you're doing the wave at the baseball game. Then you're yucking it up at the dinner in Argentina. You're doing the tango. It's just part of the same old thing. I mean, after Benghazi, we do the brief statement in the White House, then we go off to a political event. Obviously, you know, after the San Bernardino attack, similar concern that he really wasn't engaged enough, even from liberals who, you know, have dying to say something negative about the president. But even Richard Haass is no right-wing, you know, person. I mean, clearly, it's not sitting well with people. And I think it goes back to this thought that many of us have that for President Obama, his role is not so much to be out there projecting American strength, but restraining America. America is a problem in the world, whether it's with Gitmo or whether our views on the Second Amendment or an aggressive foreign policy. We are the problem. So the idea that he's going to come out there and advance American interests in the wake of this, that's just not his style.
Well, and he said, A.B., that we shouldn't react to these situations with fear. Does he get credit for that, for trying to keep things calm?
Well, presidents have to keep everyone calm while they're taking everything quite seriously. And there's two things here. There's the optics of being on a trip and not canceling, and then there's actually the substance of how he responds to all these attacks and what he says. I think on the substance he's a bit in denial. We've talked about that before. He likes to rationalize how you get into a traffic accident more quickly or something, and that's a separate issue. Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, whoever's the next president, is going to be away on a trip, and something like this is going to happen overseas, if not at home. It's just going to happen. I don't know that he has to leave Argentina, where there's a new president and he's trying to make an alliance and do his job. But you can, on a trip, you don't have to play golf after talking about James Foley's beheading. And you can, on a trip, say, we just can't, there's been an attack, we can't make the baseball game now. Or when we're at this dinner, we can actually have the dinner with no cameras. Or I just want you to know, I will have no scenes of any kind of festivity. This is something that I've been briefed on all day that we take seriously. So there's a way to carry out the duties of the presidency and take your trip and not have to run home and admit that ISIS causes chaos and disruption without blowing it off and look like you're having a great time.
You're chomping at the bit, Charles.
Yes, I am. Been waiting all day to say this. Look, there are two separate issues here. I think he was right not to come home. It wasn't as if he was going to change his ISIS strategy. If he came home, he'd call a meeting of the National Security Council and all of a sudden speak to the nation about how he's going to face it. He doesn't have to respond by returning, but there is the issue of simple common decency, what the founders call the opinion, a respect for the opinion of mankind. The Belgians are in the midst of scraping the blood off the walls of their airport. People are still dying. People are still not yet found. And he cannot have displays of frivolous entertainment. So he should have stayed in Cuba. George is right. He never should have been there in the first place. But he didn't have to get on a plane and go home. But there was no reason he could not have canceled the baseball game. And the tango is just stupendously insensitive. There's a decent interval when people are killed where you lower the flags, you lower your eyes, you go ahead with your business, which he has, serious business in Argentina, which has a new government, pro-American, non-Peronist, important to be there, but you don't go tango dancing. You represent the United States abroad, your image is the United States, and you can't be dancing when other people are mourning.
And we still have ongoing raids. I mean, we're getting reports across the wires here. Reuters is reporting local news in Belgium saying that they've made 6 arrests following raids there. There's an additional raid going on apparently outside of Paris. So, George, the story is still very much unfolding.
This is the police dimension of the counterterrorism, and it's a big dimension. We've seen what happens when the police measures fail in a weak state such as Belgium. In a strong state such as France, they're going to do better. And all these differences in nations matter, but what matters most of all is the cooperation between their intelligence services and ours, and that's jeopardized by the sense on their part, perhaps, that we're just not serious.
Well, and Laura, I noted that a couple of pundits and analysts today said that this president operates very much from his head, not from emotions, and that may explain his reaction to these events.
Well, you know, I was thinking about how many times he's invoked the global community, global understanding, I'm a citizen of the world. And this is a time where our allies are really hurting. I mean, Catherine Herridge was talking about how these bombs vaporize people, basically, and they're having trouble identifying people. We had missing Americans. I think Charles is right. The sense from the American people is this is just not all that important. And for someone who talks about the global community as much as he does, boy, it doesn't look like, at least in these images, that he's all that worried about it.